Hi everyone. Welcome to the second Facebook Live session of our Creative New Zealand Optimised video series for 2017, which is focused on moving marketing spend from traditional to digital. I'm Vicky Allpress-Hill of the Audience Connection. My colleague Catherine, who's behind the camera here, and I are proud to be working with Creative New Zealand on co-producing this series to help New Zealand arts marketers increase their digital capabilities and confidence. So today I'm chatting with Candice de Villiers, who is Marketing and Communications Manager at Q Theatre in Auckland. So we're actually here in the main theatre space, Rangatira, of Q Theatre. And we're going to be chatting for the next 20 minutes or so on Candice's experiences at Q with trialling some digital marketing channels. So I've known Candice for some time, many years in the New Zealand arts sector, and she's always thinking strategically and pushing the boundaries. That's what I know about Candice. But she and Q Theatre have recently been doing some good work here, and she's a great person for us to learn from her recent experiences, because we need people out there trialling these tools. So just a comment that if you have, welcome to those of you joining us, either now live or if you're watching the recording, and if you have any questions for Candice or myself, please pop them in the comments field, and then after the session we'll follow up with them as quickly as we possibly can. So New Zealand arts organisations are still typically leaning more towards traditional channels, although many are starting to trial digital, but there is definitely some lack of confidence, and there is room for opportunity to be, if I look at international companies and what they're doing around the world. So recently I've seen data that showed one Chicago theatre company had 22% of their ticket sales for the season came from Facebook, through Facebook. Wow. And also a New York City dance company that invested, I think it was around $34,000 in digital media, and then got a $351,000 return on ticket sales. So we're seeing some great tangible stuff, and the results from our local optimizer benchmarking program are showing obviously a real shift towards digital. 48,000 new likes on the Facebook pages of 38 participants alone in 1 year, and a 278% growth in Instagram followers. So we're certainly seeing that. I know that Candice, you at Q have recently analysed results from the 2016 annual audience survey, and Yes. You've seen some interesting findings there.
Yeah, we have. We've been running an audience survey since Q opened, but over the last 3 years we've gotten some interesting trends on one particular question that's remained the same across those 3 years. So we've asked the same question to our entire database in that survey, and the question is, how do you source information about Q Theatre? And then we give a range of 10 options, and people can select all that apply, not just one. So the options include our website, emails from us, online news and reviews, print news and reviews, as well as advertising in print, outdoor display, so posters, billboards, banners, and then social media and radio as well. And we're seeing a small trend, because it's only 3 years and it's not, it's not the entire population that we're looking at. But what we have seen is that certainly across the more traditional media, so in print, newspaper and in radio, things are stagnating, if not slightly decreasing, in terms of people saying that that's their main source or a source that they seek information out about Q. Whereas on the flip side, social media and email have grown across the 3 years. However, what was also interesting to me is that Q's website, while it hasn't necessarily gone down, it's not increasing. They're not saying that, oh, Q's website's the #1 place that I source information. And I think that kind of, to me, indicates that people's main source is coming from active promotion that we're doing and active things that we're actively talking about on social media and email, and then people go to our website to complete the transaction or complete whatever it is that we're asking them to do. And I guess there's two possibilities for why this is happening I've been thinking about. One is that maybe New Zealand arts marketers are just doing less in traditional advertising, so that's why people are seeing less. Journalism, in terms of in print, especially towards the arts, has perhaps dropped over the last few years, unfortunately. So there's that side of things. Maybe there's just less to see, to source from. But also, possibly, the other thing is that people are just actively sourcing stuff on social media and online. So that's where we should be going.
Yeah, and I think certainly the Optimiser results are showing that email and social are really strong.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that emails, because, for a while people are like, oh, is email dead and is it only social? But I think email still has a really strong impact.
It's really important, yeah. And I think you were saying to me earlier that driving traffic to your website is really important actively, rather than just putting things on your website and expecting that people will come
go there for updates. Oh, I should go look at the QZ website today.
That doesn't happen.
I do that, but I'm not sure how many other people do.
Yeah, so so we are seeing changes, and I think in the Optimiser results we saw that 31 of the 38 organisations are using Facebook paid promotion now, so that's great.
What's also nice about that is, of course, you're not just talking to the people that already like you. I think that's such a powerful tool with Facebook. Promotion, paid and boosted campaigns, is that you don't just have to talk to your fans. You can also talk to people who haven't yet found you or discovered you.
And who are like your fans.
Exactly.
Yes. So why do you think we're still not seeing as much really sophisticated digital advertising and marketing as we probably could in this sector? And so why do you think that it's such a challenge for organisations, being that you're right in it yourself and you're facing these challenges yourself? What do you think are the challenges?
Yes, absolutely. Facing them all the time, because it can be quite overwhelming, because there is so much that you could be doing that sometimes you just don't do anything for a number of reasons. And so I've sort of thought of 4 things that I've either come across or I'm aware exist as challenges to getting stuck into digital marketing. The first one is common across so many things in an organisation or with a project you're working on, and that's time and resource. If you feel already time poor, stretched for resource, it's sometimes trying something new is difficult and overwhelming, so you just rinse and repeat, copy and paste on what you've done before. And if what you've done before is always traditional marketing, and it kind of worked last time and an audience did show up, then surely it'll kind of work this time and an audience will show up. So we'll just replace the details of the previous ad with the new details and do it again. The other one is that sort of runs similar to that, is just feeling overwhelmed and a bit of fear of the unknown. So you're time poor, you don't have a lot of resource, and then you also just have no idea where to start. You've not done it before, and so you just feel, well, I'll just do what I know, because I know that kind of works, and the risk appears to be low because you're not trying something new. But then, of course, if you don't take that risk, you don't necessarily get the big return. So I think a good way to try and overcome that, if you've got those 2 things playing in any capacity within the work you're doing, is just really baby steps, which is easier said than done. But every single project you work on doesn't have to be an entirely new thing that you try out, or the whole thing doesn't have to be digital marketing. Pick one thing, start small, pick one project and say, I'm going to do X% digitally, focusing in this one area, and just be really specific. And even if it doesn't work, you've made the risk small enough, you've managed it, and you've still learnt from it, and so the benefits are still there for next time, whether or not you choose to do it or try something new next time.
And because digital is so instantly measurable,
yes,
and can be incredibly cost effective.
Exactly.
Like you say, it's something that you can take as a small package and amplify.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to test in some ways, because you're not having to do the big outlay on a print advertising campaign or posters. You can just try one small campaign that's boosted, see how it goes. And if it's not working, you can stop it, whereas you can't pull a print ad once you've run it and paid the full amount. But you can spend 20% of your original budget on that Facebook campaign, and it's not working. Okay, let's either try something different or put it somewhere else, which is quite nice. And then the other 2 things that that I sort of thought of as challenges are sometimes, depending on who you're working with or for, you might not be the one that is actually in control of the overall approach to the marketing budget, of where it goes and how it goes into the places it does. So you might have higher management, funders, or even board that potentially have to sign off on it. And depending on their experiences or understanding of digital marketing, it can be difficult to convince them. But like you said, what's so wonderful about digital marketing is that it is measurable. And so even if you can convince them to give you 10% or a smaller amount of your budget to try this one thing, if you're really smart about tracking the return and the reach and what it's actually doing, then you can show them and demonstrate that with that one thing, look at how much we achieve. Now imagine if we multiply it. And then the last thing I had is potentially being something is just not making assumptions about your audiences. I've worked in organisations where it's a more traditional, a more mature audience. So the assumption is, oh, well, they're not online. They must only read the Herald and the Listener, so we must only advertise there. But my grandmother, hi Gran, if you're watching, is 80 years old, or in her 80s, sorry if I got that wrong, Gran, and she is on Facebook, email, Google. She's constantly telling me about things she's seen promoted online. She gets emails telling her about different events coming up, and she loves classical music and traditional art forms. So if we're assuming she's not there, we're wrong, and there's a real opportunity.
And again, we have data, so we have analytics in our channels to show us the demographics of who's on the page and to understand who's in the sector following these channels. So,
absolutely. So getting to know your audience as well is key.
So I really want to move on to the next question, which is the guts of this, because I don't want to run out of time for this bit. So you have really maximised digital marketing for Q Theatre's season of briefs. I see some collateral here.
Yes,
it's not digital, but
not digital, but it did end up being digital. Yes.
And that was during November, December last year. So I think this is really valuable to us to hear some real tangible results of a campaign you've recently done. So could you tell us a little bit about briefs, what digital marketing you used, and what was the most successful for you?
Absolutely. So Briefs was a big season for Q, and it was one that the model was such that we had full control over the marketing, which doesn't always happen for us as a venue. It was our end-of-year season. The collateral might have shown you that it was, attractive men doing burlesque and crazy circus skills in a cabaret setting. So it was a really fun one to market as well. It was really hard work, Vicky. So for this one, we really had quite a nice budget, and I think regardless of the size of your budget, you should really look at how you break it up and where you put your spending across different marketing channels. And we didn't just use digital, and I think that was one of the things I'm really keen to talk about is how you use traditional marketing, because that's still relevant, it still has a place, but with digital and how the two talk to each other. Because I think even traditional marketing channels and agencies or companies like NZME or MediaWorks, their campaigns more and more are utilising digital alongside their traditional. So in terms of our budget, 54% of the total marketing budget went towards traditional marketing. However, within that, we ran a big MediaWorks campaign that started on radio, but even MediaWorks then used all of that content on their website, on their social media, to extend the reach of that. So even though I can say 54% was traditional marketing, within that, there was so much digital marketing because traditional marketing companies are using digital. We also did TV advertising, but we didn't do it on broadcast television, we did it on TV on demand, which meant that we could pick the shows because we knew the audience. They tracked who actually watched it. They told us how many impressions it got. We had a clickable link right by the advert so that people could right away go and buy tickets if they were interested. And you just aren't able to track that with traditional marketing. And then 30% of our total marketing budget went directly to digital online marketing. And we did a mix for this. We did quite a bit of it in-house, and that was primarily our email marketing through our own databases and other databases around the city. But we did choose to get some experts on board, and I think that's where, if you can afford to, at least for one project, get some experts on board. We got a digital agency to help us with a paid marketing campaign on Facebook and on Google. And having that I could learn from them so that we can then take those learnings and those reports and use them for next time was amazing. They set up pixel tracking so that our Facebook advertising and our Google AdWords advertising could be tracked right through to transactions, so we could actually track the return on investment that spend was getting, which was phenomenal. And then the rest of our budget went to PR and actually design and content generation, which is important for the print stuff, but also really important for the digital marketing in terms of amazing imagery, making sure that it's fresh, that it's eye-catching, and video as well. So that's kind of the overall how we spent it all, and then I thought I could kind of pull out some key points.
Yeah, please.
So for a few things that we found that were big successes with our paid digital marketing campaign, our Facebook paid adverts that we ran were very, very targeted, and we were able to have a series of different targets. So we targeted people that already liked Q and already knew about Q, and we had content generated specifically for those people. We didn't have to tell them about Q because they already knew. We were able to retarget to our email database, which is what's so great about Facebook, is that you can upload your email database to it and target to those people. And then I created an interests group that was all about the kinds of people we knew were likely to book for briefs. And that went off. What's so great about digital marketing is that you can target so specifically. I could say anyone that enjoys the Real Housewives of Auckland or the Real Housewives of Melbourne, or is planning a hens party, or is engaged, show them this ad. You can't do that with traditional marketing in the same way. And retargeting ads were the one thing that we did on Facebook that had the biggest return. So what we did was anyone who had already been to our website, through pixel tracking, they were tagged with cookies. And then if they were on Facebook, if they hadn't been through the website and actually purchased a ticket, they were served up an ad. So we already know that they're interested in briefs. They've been to that page on our website, but they haven't completed the transaction. And then they get served that ad. They're ready and they're primed for it. And 50% of the total ticket sales through that Facebook campaign came from retargeting, which is something that I would recommend looking into if you can. The other thing we did on Facebook is we used an influencer. So influencers, if it's not something you've heard about before, is essentially finding people who have a big following on Facebook or on social media for their personality or whatever they endorse, and using them to help you promote your event. We used JJ Harvey. She was someone we thought that would meet or speak to the audience that we were looking at for briefs. We did pay her to do this, and it's becoming more and more common. And she did one post for us. We provided her with content. We provided her with a bit of an incentive in the content, like a giveaway. And before she even put any boosting towards it, the organic reach for that one single Facebook post was over 200,000. We had 415 shares of that one post. And then we boosted it and got an additional 28,000. And we received 1,000 new likes on our Facebook page, thanks to JJ Harvey. So thanks, JJ. And, in terms of the price of that, it was equal to, say, a Herald ad. I can't really say what size, but it was worthwhile, and I know that we've got that data now. We also did Google AdWords as well, and what we noticed with the Google AdWords was that when we had a spike in activity in our traditional marketing, whether it was radio or we had a lot of activity on the street, the amount of people searching for briefs on Google went up, and the click-throughs for the ads to buy tickets went up. So that's where those two things work together, and being really aware of that if you've got limited budget, to spend it so that it's making sense, so that it has the most impact in terms of, we've got a lot of activity on radio, let's make sure we've got our AdWords set up for that week so that people are actually making that transaction. And the results were fantastic. So we found that 58% of people who purchased tickets to briefs had never ever purchased tickets through our database, through our ticketing system before. That might have obviously been a result of the programming choice, but I'm hoping it was also partly a result of the marketing and where we actually went to, rather than always just going to our existing audience. And in terms of just for the digital component, the total digital budget, and then looking at the return on investment that we were able to track through that paid Facebook and Google AdWords campaigns, we had a 327% return on investment. So for every dollar we spent in digital marketing, and that's including hiring the agency and all that kind of thing, we made $3.27 back in ticket sales. And that's gross income, obviously, before we had to pay the artists. It's important you pay your artists. So it was fantastic, I think, and really, really worthwhile. And for the learning, if for no other reason, it was fantastic.
That's great. And there's a number of channels the Google AdWords and Facebook, etc., that you've got now evidence to develop and reuse those channels.
Absolutely.
And I think, that return on investment, I mean, how many of us are really tracking with traditional channels could really state in such detail, this was the return of every dollar that we spent?
And we don't tend to even do it with our digital, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was so fantastic for us with Briefs, was that because we did put some budget towards an agency, they helped us set up that pixel tracking, that we were able to know exactly how much we were getting back in terms of what we were spending, so it made it worthwhile.
That's really great. And I was interested about the 30, I think it was 30% of your budget went directly to online, and plus obviously a greater percentage really in reality went to online. And just looking at some Forrester research from 2016, which is obviously worldwide and across a range of industries, the average company expected to allocate 30% of their marketing budget to online. So that's outside of the arts. So, that's kind of around the percentage that perhaps we should be looking at.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously it's dependent on who you are, etc. So, I guess just we do have to start wrapping up now, but we could talk all day to you about these experiences. But what is next for Q Theatre, and how are you going to take these learnings? What are you going to do next?
I think just starting to do more of that level of detail in our online and digital marketing. So taking the learning from Briefs and trying to get more of that return on investment tracking implemented online. And certainly, I think sharing, because we aren't always in control of the marketing spend that comes into Q, sharing it with the rest of the industry and, enabling other presenters to learn what we've learnt, because we've spent the money on learning it, we might as well share it so that the industry as a whole benefits. Because if they do a good job and they benefit, Q benefits, and everybody in the industry does. So I think it's really about that. It's encouraging others to learn from what we've learnt, really.
Well, that's really great. And we really appreciate that you and Q have been so generous in sharing today, because it really does help others to hear very specific examples of what you've been doing. So for those watching today and watching on the recording later, what advice would you give them in terms of making the shift and how to get started?
Well, just to start. I think that's the hardest bit. And even if you have no budget, you can still do online promotion and marketing. You can speak to someone you know that's got a great following online and get them to, help promote your event. And buy them a coffee, maybe. They might do it for a coffee. So I think just starting somewhere. And the other big thing that I have noticed is it's very easy to just start without having a plan. And I think we underestimate how much time we need to spend on the planning and on the wrapping up and reporting and analysing. So 50% of the time you spend should be in the pre-planning stage, identifying your audience, deciding how you're going to do it, being really clear, and then 50% on the actual doing. Whereas I think we tend to do 10 to 20% on the planning and then do it, and then you move so quickly on to the next thing that you don't actually analyse how well it went and what you should do next time, and the reporting, return on investment, and all that kind of thing. So I think doing the boring stuff, the planning and the afterwards is actually the most beneficial. So if you can do that, you're
and
up to
ultimately saves you time. And also, I think once you've put in place some sort of template or process for planning, you can reuse that.
Absolutely, much quicker.
Yeah.
And also to don't just set up your ads and then think, I'm going to walk away now, because that's what we do when we do traditional advertising. Place an advert and it's done. Analyse it, keep looking at it on a weekly basis. How's it tracking? Should I pull it? Should I put more money into it? Should I change the target? That's the beauty of digital marketing.
So building in time to your day or week to do that.
Yeah,
as you go
absolutely.
through. Yeah. So, okay, Candice, I just wanted to thank you so much, because I know you've done this additional to your very busy job in which you're planning digital marketing for the next season. So it's arts marketers like you who are giving these tools a try and then tracking and measuring results, who are giving us the case studies and examples that we all need to learn from. So this will obviously be available as a recording on the Facebook page ongoing. So if you've viewed this today and you found it really beneficial, please can we ask you to share it with any others who may also benefit. And again, if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments section and we'll do our best to answer them or direct you to the answer. So we do have a couple more Facebook Lives coming up on 9th and 23rd of May, which is part 1 and part 2 of measuring social media engagement. So we're looking forward to reconvening with you on Creative New Zealand's Facebook page then. Thanks a lot, and thanks Candice.
Thanks, Vicky.
And thanks Creative New Zealand.